One day, I arrived home and heard laughter in my living room. My daughter-in-law was showing the house to a potential buyer. "I was thinking of selling it, Mother," I replied calmly. "You've already lived your life. And you? You've just started ruining yours." The silence dropped like a punch. She went completely pale. I'll never forget the sound of that laughter. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I returned from my doctor's appointment. I had barely closed the front door when I heard it. Unfamiliar cackles echoing off the walls that I myself put up 35 years ago. Laughter that didn't belong to me in a house that did. I put my purse down near the entrance. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from something I couldn't yet name. I walked slowly toward the living room, each step on the solid hardwood floor that I chose piece by piece. And then I saw them. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, was standing next to the main window, pointing toward the yard with that possessive gesture she had perfected over the last few months. Next to her, a man in a grey suit was taking pictures with his cell phone. A man I had never seen in my life. "The finishes are all original," she was saying with a brilliant smile. "Look at these high ceilings, this natural light. It's a gem of a property." I stood paralyzed in the doorway. The stranger nodded, writing something in a notebook. "And how much are you asking for it?" Vanessa didn't even flinch. $4.8 million. It's a fair price considering the location and the lot size. $4.8 million. The exact value of my home. The number that only appeared in my private documents. I felt the air grow dense. Then she saw me. Her eyes met mine for a split second. And in that instant, something shifted in her expression. It wasn't shame. It was calculation. She was measuring what to say, how to get out of this. "Oh, Mother," she said with a voice that was too sweet. "I didn't hear you come in." I didn't answer. I just held her gaze while the stranger extended his hand to me. "Good afternoon, Ma'am. I'm Engineer Miller. I came to see the property." My mouth moved on its own. "To see my property?" Vanessa let out a nervous laugh. "It's just that, well, I thought it would be a good idea to explore options." She moved closer to me, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "You've already lived your life, Mother. This house is too big for one person. Don't you think it would be better to sell it so we could all use that money?" The silence that followed was deafening. Engineer Miller coughed awkwardly, looking between Vanessa and me as if he had just realized he had stepped into a minefield. But I didn't take my eyes off her, off that woman who came into my home 2 years ago asking for shelter, who slept in my sheets, who ate from my plates, who swore in front of my son that she would love him in sickness and in health. "You've already lived your life." Those 4 words spun in my head like furious bees. I took a deep breath. I felt the blood rush to my cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from something more primitive, more ancient, something that had been dormant in me for too long. When I spoke, my voice came out calm, too calm. "And you?" I paused, letting each word fall like a stone in still water. "You've just started ruining yours." Vanessa blinked. The smile froze on her face. "Excuse me?" I didn't repeat myself. I just turned to Engineer Miller, who was already putting away his notebook with evident haste. "Engineer, I apologize for wasting your time," I said with icy courtesy. "This house is not for sale, never has been, and the person who told you otherwise has no right to it." The man nodded quickly, mumbling apologies as he headed for the door. Vanessa tried to stop him, but it was too late. The door closed with a sharp click, and then we were alone. Vanessa turned to me, and for the first time since I had met her, I saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't regret. It was barely contained fury. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she hissed. "I was only trying to help. This house is falling apart. You can't maintain it anymore. And Robert, and I, Robert and you," I interrupted her. "You live here by my generosity. You eat my food. You sleep under my roof. And now I discover you're trying to sell what doesn't belong to you." She went pale, completely pale. "I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted to—" "What did you want, Vanessa?" My voice remained calm, but every word came out sharp as a scalpel. "To take my house while I still breathe? To leave me with nothing because you decided I'm not worth it anymore?" She didn't answer. Her lips were trembling. I walked toward her, and even though I am 8 inches shorter, at that moment I felt like I was looking down at her from a great height. "This conversation isn't over," I whispered, "but I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Pray that your husband doesn't find out about this before I decide what to do with you." I turned around and climbed the stairs to my room. My legs were barely holding me up, but I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't let her know that inside I was breaking into pieces. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed where I slept with my husband for 30 years, where I cared for him in his final days, where I cried over his death until I had no tears left. And only then, in the silence of my own room, did I let the trembling in my hands spread throughout my body. "You've already lived your life. How dare she? How dare she look at me and decide that my time was over, that I didn't even deserve the roof I built with my own hands?" I clenched my fists in my lap, because there was the problem. Vanessa didn't know who I was. She didn't know that this house wasn't just walls and windows. It was my work, my design, my sacrifice. And the most serious thing, she didn't know how far I was willing to go to protect it. But she was about to find out. Downstairs, I heard hurried footsteps, a door opening, Robert's voice asking what had happened, Vanessa's shrill voice inventing her version of events. I got up and walked to the window. From there I could see the garden I planted with my own hands, the lemon tree I planted when Robert was born, the iron bench where my husband and I drank coffee every morning. This wasn't just my house. It was my entire life. And no one, absolutely no one, was going to take it from me. Please note, I am omitting the self-promotion/call to action button for subscribing/sharing here, as it breaks the narrative flow and is not part of the core script content for translation, adaptation. The narrative continues below. I leaned my forehead against the cold window glass. Vanessa had just made the biggest mistake of her life, only she didn't know it yet. That night I didn't go down for dinner. I heard the soft knocks on my door, the voice of Robert, my son, asking if I was okay, saying we needed to talk. But I didn't answer. Because if I opened that door, if I saw his face, maybe I would say things I couldn't take back. Instead, I stayed seated in the armchair next to the window, watching the shadows of the garden as the night swallowed the day's colours. And there, in that silence, I did something I hadn't done in years. I remembered. I remembered the woman I used to be. My name is Elizabeth Liz Hayes. I am 68 years old, but there was a time when 68 seemed like a distant eternity. There was a time when I was unstoppable. I closed my eyes and saw myself at 33, with my black hair pulled back in a ponytail, my hands stained with ink and plaster, bent over a drafting table, in a tiny office that barely had any windows. It was 1990. I had just graduated as an architect in a world that still looked strangely at women with hard hats and blueprints under their arms. My husband, Frank, worked as an accountant at a medium-sized company. Robert was only 3 years old and ran barefoot through our rented house in Astoria, a two-bedroom apartment where the upstairs neighbors made so much noise it sounded like they were moving furniture at midnight. Liz, Frank would say to me as we drank instant coffee in the early morning, someday we'll have our own house, one that you design, one that is only ours. I would smile, nod, but inside I thought, not someday, soon, because I wasn't one to wait. For 5 years I worked 3 jobs simultaneously. I designed houses by day for a firm where they paid me half as much as my male colleagues. In the afternoons, I taught technical drawing at a high school, and at night, after putting Robert to bed, I locked myself in the dining room and designed freelance projects for small construction companies that needed cheap and fast blueprints. Frank never asked me to stop. He never told me, that's enough, or take a break. He took care of Robert when I had deadlines. He made me tea when my eyes could no longer focus on the numbers. He massaged my shoulders when the weight of worry bent my back. "You're the strongest woman I know," he would whisper in my ear, and I believed him, because I had to. In 1995, after 5 years of not sleeping more than 4 hours a night, of saving every dollar that came into the house, of turning down outings and parties and vacations, we finally did it. We bought the land. It wasn't big, barely 4,000 square feet on the outskirts of Atlanta, in an area that was almost rural back then. But it was ours. I remember the day I stepped onto that piece of earth for the first time. It still smelled of recent rain. There were tall weeds and rocks everywhere. Frank took my hand and asked, "What do you see?" I smiled. I closed my eyes, and I saw everything. I saw the walls rising. I saw the windows letting in the morning light. I saw a yard where Robert could play. I saw a large kitchen where we would prepare Sunday dinners. I saw a library where we would keep the books we loved. I saw a home. "I see our life," I told him. And then I got to work. I designed every inch of this house, every angle, every window. I chose the orientation to take advantage of the morning sun in the bedrooms. I calculated the ceiling height so the heat wouldn't concentrate in summer. I designed deep closets, spacious pantries, bathrooms with natural ventilation. But I didn't just design, I also built. Yes, myself. Because we didn't have the money to hire all the labor. So I learned. I learned to mix cement, to lay bricks, to level floors. I learned to use the drill, the sander, the hammer. My hands, which had only known pencils and rulers, became full of calluses and scars. Frank worked with me every weekend. Robert played among the bags of sand, building his own castles while we raised the walls of ours. It took us 3 years. 3 years of literal blood, sweat, and tears. 3 years of nights where I fell asleep with aching hands. 3 years of getting up before dawn to check that everything was progressing well. But in 1998, we finally moved in. I remember how I felt the first night I slept in this house, lying on the floor of the master bedroom, because we still didn't have a new bed, looking at the ceiling that I had planned myself, feeling the walls that I myself had helped raise. I cried. I cried so much that Frank got scared. "What's wrong?" he asked, hugging me. "Nothing," I whispered. "It's just, we did it. We really did it." This house wasn't just bricks and concrete. It was living proof that when a woman sets her mind to something, the whole universe has to step aside. The years passed. Robert grew up within these walls. He learned to ride his bike in this yard. He celebrated birthdays in this living room. He brought friends, girlfriends, dreams. Frank and I grew old here. We celebrated anniversaries, mourned losses, planted trees, remodeled rooms. Every corner of this house held a piece of us. And then, 8 years ago, Frank got sick. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months to live, the doctors said. He lived 11. 11 months where this house transformed into a hospital, a refuge, a temple. Where I transformed into a nurse, a warrior, a widow-to-be. I cared for him here, in our bedroom, in that bed where we had slept together for 30 years. I gave him his medicine. I bathed him when he could no longer do it himself. I read him his favorite books. I held his hand while the pain tore him in two, and he died here, in my arms, looking at me with those eyes that had seen me build empires from scratch. His last words were, "Take care of her. She's yours too." He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the house, because he knew that this house was more than a place. It was my legacy, my masterpiece, my proof that Elizabeth Hayes had existed and had left her mark on this world. After his death, Robert wanted me to move in with him. "Mum, this house is too big for you alone," he would say. "Come live with us." But I refused. How could I abandon the only place where I could still feel Frank? How could I leave the trees we planted together, the rooms we painted, the garden where I scattered his ashes? I stayed, alone, yes, but at home. And now, 27 years after finishing its construction, 35 since I bought the land, someone walked into my living room and decided that all of that didn't matter, that I had lived enough, that it was time to sell. I opened my eyes. Night had completely fallen. The city lights blinked in the distance like fallen stars. I got up from the armchair. My knees protested, but I ignored them. I walked to my closet and took out an old shoebox that I kept on the highest shelf. Inside were the original blueprints of this house, yellowed, folded, stained with coffee and tears and construction dust. I unfolded them on the bed. I ran my fingers over the lines I had traced decades ago. Every measurement, every calculation, every dream come true. This house was worth $4.8 million according to the current market, but for me, it was priceless. And if Vanessa thought she could snatch it away with fake smiles and unknown buyers, she was very wrong. Because I was Elizabeth Hayes, the woman who built her own castle, and castles don't surrender without a fight. I folded the blueprints carefully. I put them back in their box. And then I did something I hadn't done since Frank's funeral. I knelt by the bed and prayed. I didn't pray for patience. I didn't pray for forgiveness. I prayed for strength, because I was going to need it. The next morning I went down to breakfast as if nothing had happened. Vanessa was in the kitchen making coffee. When she saw me walk in, she visibly tensed. Her hands stopped over the coffee maker. "Good morning," I said in a neutral, almost kind voice. She blinked, confused. "Good morning, Mother." I didn't say anything else. I simply took out my favorite mug, the blue ceramic one Frank gave me for our 10th anniversary, and waited my turn to pour coffee. The silence in the kitchen was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Robert walked in minutes later, with that look of a man who slept poorly and woke up worse. My son. My only son. 43 years old, civil engineer, with hair already thinning on his crown, and those wrinkles around his eyes that made him look older than he was. He looked at me as if expecting an explosion, but I just smiled. "Did you sleep well, son?" His bewilderment was evident. Yes, Mum. And you?" As always, I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm going out for a few hours. I have some things to sort out." Vanessa and Robert exchanged quick glances. She seemed relieved. He, cautious. I didn't give them time to ask anything else. I grabbed my keys, my purse, and left the house without looking back. But I didn't go to sort things out. I went to remember. I drove to a cafe in Greenwich Village, one I used to frequent with Frank when we needed to escape the noise of the world. I sat at a window table, ordered an Americano, and let my mind travel back. 2 years. Only 2 years had passed since Robert arrived with Vanessa. It was an October afternoon. I was pruning the rose bushes in the yard when I heard the doorbell. I opened the door, and there was my son with a suitcase in each hand and an unfamiliar woman next to him. "Mom," he said with that nervous smile he used when he knew he was about to ask me for something big. "This is Vanessa, my girlfriend." Girlfriend. Not even fiancée. Just girlfriend. Vanessa was 32 then. Robert, 41. 9 years difference. Long black hair, perfectly straight. Impeccable blood-red nails. Tight clothes that screamed designer brand without really being one. And that smile. God. That smile that looked practiced in front of a mirror. "So nice to meet you, Mrs. Hayes," she said in a soft, almost childish voice. "Robert has told me so much about you." I shook her hand. Cold. Too cold for a warm day. "The pleasure is mine." I looked at my son. "Are you coming in, or were you just visiting?" Robert cleared his throat. "Actually, Mom, we need a favor." Of course they did. It turned out Robert had lost his job 3 months prior. A company restructuring, they said. Last in, first out. And Vanessa, he told me, worked in sales but was between jobs. Between jobs. What an elegant way to say unemployed. "We need to stay here for a while," Robert said without looking me in the eye. "Just until I find something new. A couple of months max." A couple of months. I should have said no. I should have asked him why they didn't seek help from her family. I should have set clear rules, boundaries, specific dates. But I looked at my son, this man I had raised alone after Frank's death, and I saw something in his eyes that scared me. Desperation. "All right," I said. "You can stay." Vanessa smiled, a victorious smile that she tried to disguise as gratitude. "Thank you, Mother. You don't know how much this means to us." Mother. She was already calling me mother without even being married. The first few days were tolerable. Vanessa seemed kind, helpful. She helped with the cleaning, she made breakfast. She asked if I needed anything from the grocery store. Robert spent his mornings sending out resumes and doing video interviews. In the afternoons, he went out with Vanessa to get to know the neighborhood, or they locked themselves in their room. I tried to give them space. After all, they were a couple. They needed privacy. But then the changes started. Small at first, almost imperceptible. Vanessa began reorganizing the kitchen. "It's just more practical this way, Mother," she'd say as she moved my pots. She changed the living room curtains without asking me. "The others were too old," she justified. She brought in a new sofa she bought on sale and relegated my favorite armchair to the basement. "This one is more modern," she assured me. Every time I protested, Robert would intervene. "Mom, it's not a big deal. She's just trying to help." Help? By erasing my presence from my own home? But I kept quiet, because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the one who complains, the one who interferes, the one who makes drama over everything. So I swallowed my discomfort and smiled. A couple of months turned into 6, then a year. After that, a year and a half. Robert got sporadic freelance jobs, but nothing stable. Vanessa was still looking, but never found anything that convinced her. And meanwhile, my house stopped being mine. Vanessa invited friends over without telling me. They celebrated birthdays of people I didn't know in my living room. They used my good china, the one I only took out at Christmas. They left dirty dishes in the sink for me to wash. When I asked them to contribute to the expenses, Robert would look at me with puppy dog eyes. Mum, you know we're tight. As soon as the situation improves. But the situation never improved. And Vanessa, every day, acted less like a guest and more like the owner. She started calling my house our house, referring to my garden as our garden, to my living room as our living room. When her friends asked, she would say, "Yes, we live here. It's a family home," as if I were just a tenant in my own property. Robert seemed blind, or worse, he seemed unwilling to see. I confronted him one night. It was 6 months ago, after Vanessa redecorated my dining room without even consulting me. "Son," I said when we were alone, "we need to talk." He sighed, as if he already knew what was coming, as if he were tired of hearing it. "Mum, please, don't start." "Start what? Defending what's mine? Asking for a minimum of respect?" "Vanessa respects you," he said, but his voice sounded hollow, as if he were repeating something he had rehearsed. "She just wants the house to look nice, to be a pleasant place for everyone." It was pleasant before she arrived. Robert closed his eyes. "Mum, don't do this. Please." "Do what? Remind you that this house is mine? That you are here because of my generosity?" "I know it's your house," he finally exploded. "Do you think I don't know? Do you think she doesn't remind me every damn day how grateful I should be?" I was frozen. "Vanessa doesn't remind me of anything," I continued with a trembling voice. "She just acts as if she has a right to be here." "I know, because I gave it to her." He ran his hands over his face. "Mom, I love her, and I need you to make an effort to get along with her." I love her. Those 2 words explained everything. My son was so in love, so blinded, that he couldn't see what I saw with crystal clarity. Vanessa didn't love this house. She didn't love him either. She loved the security, the comfort, the free roof. But I couldn't tell him that, because when you tell a man that the woman he loves is just using him, he doesn't listen to you, he just hates you. So I swallowed the words. I nodded, and I let him believe he had won. But that night, lying in my bed, I knew something had broken between my son and me. Something we might never be able to repair. And 3 months later, there I was, sitting in a Greenwich Village cafe, drinking a cold Americano, while remembering how I had gotten to this point. How I had allowed a stranger to come into my life and dismantle it piece by piece. How I had lost my son without even realizing the exact moment it happened. I paid the check. I left the cafe. And as I walked toward my car, I made a decision. I wasn't going to get my son back by arguing with him. I was going to get him back by showing him the truth. And for that, I needed evidence. Ants don't destroy a house in a day. They do it slowly, patiently, one crumb at a time, one piece of wood after another, until one day you realize the foundations are hollow, and it's too late. That's how Vanessa took my own life from me. Not with one blow, with 1,000 small stings that at first seemed insignificant. I returned home that afternoon determined to observe, to document, to see with new eyes what I had been ignoring for months. And what I saw chilled me to the bone. I walked through the front door, and the smell hit me first. It wasn't the usual aroma, that mix of old wood and garden flowers that I loved so much. It was perfume, a sickeningly sweet, heavy perfume that saturated the air like toxic fog. Vanessa had bought one of those electric diffusers and placed it by the entrance. "French vanilla," the label said. I hated vanilla. I walked toward the kitchen. There she was, preparing something on the stove. When she saw me enter, her smile was instant. too instant. "Mother, good thing you arrived," she said. "I made barbecue chicken for lunch." My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten anything since the coffee that morning. "That's great," I said, approaching the stove. But then I saw the plates on the counter. 2 plates, only 2, generously served with fluffy white rice, fresh salad, hot rolls in a basket. "And for me?" I asked casually. Vanessa didn't even seem uncomfortable. "Oh, I didn't know what time you would be arriving, Mother, but there's more in the pot. You can serve yourself." You can serve yourself. As if I were a late arriving guest. I approached the stove. The pot was almost empty. Only a small piece of chicken was left swimming in scarce sauce. No rice, no salad. The scraps. She was giving me the scraps in my own house. I didn't say anything. I served what was left onto a plate, grabbed a hard piece of bread from the package on the refrigerator, not from the basket with the hot rolls, and sat at the breakfast nook table. Not at the dining table, because Vanessa and Robert were already settled there, eating, laughing, talking about a show they were watching together. I ate alone, in silence, looking out the window at the garden that I myself had planted. The chicken was cold. That night I decided to stay awake. I waited until I heard the bedroom doors close, until the hall lights went out, until the house was plunged into that deep silence of midnight. Then I went downstairs barefoot, like a thief in my own house, and began to check. First, the living room. The furniture Vanessa had brought in wasn't on sale, as she had said. I checked the tags that were still stuck on the bottom. Luxury department store. Each piece cost more than $4,000. With what money had she bought them if she was supposedly out of work? I opened the drawers of the new cabinet. Bills. Piles of bills in the name of Vanessa Sanchez. Credit cards, 4 different ones, all with balances in the red. I took photos with my cell phone. Every bill. Every statement I found hidden among magazines and papers. Vanessa owed $32,000 on one card, $24,000 on another, $18,000 on the third, and $15,000 on the last. $89,000 in debt. And I thought she didn't have any money. I kept looking. In the study that used to be Frank's, now converted into Vanessa's office, I found something else. Printed emails. Conversations with a lawyer named Smith, dated 2 months prior. Dear Ms. Sanchez, in response to your inquiry regarding obtaining power of attorney due to the incapacitation of the owner, I inform you that… My breath caught. Incapacitation of the owner. She was investigating how to have me declared incompetent, how to strip me of legal control over my own property. My hands were trembling so much I almost dropped the papers. I photographed them all, every line, every incriminating paragraph. There was more. An appraisal of the house done 3 weeks ago by a company I hadn't hired. $4.8 million, it said, and a handwritten note in the margin. Interested buyer, $300K down payment, $300,000 as a down payment. She had already sold my house, or at least she had already received money against a sale I hadn't authorized. I climbed the stairs again with shaky legs. I locked myself in my room. I connected my cell phone to the old laptop I had stored away and transferred all the photos. The evidence was there, clear, irrefutable. But a part of me still couldn't believe it. I still wanted to think that maybe I had misunderstood, that maybe Vanessa had an explanation. How naive I was. The following days were a silent nightmare. I started noticing things I had ignored before. Things I had convinced myself weren't a big deal, like the way Vanessa organized meetings at my house without telling me. Her friends would arrive in the afternoons. They'd settle into the living room as if it were theirs. They drank my wine, used my bathroom, left lipstick stains on my crystal glasses. Once I protested. Vanessa, I would have liked you to let me know you were having visitors. She smiled with that false sweetness I already knew so well. Oh, Mother, I thought you wouldn't mind. You're in your room after all. We're not even bothering you. In my room, as if I were an elderly woman confined to a nursing home. Or like the day I came home from grocery shopping and found my bedroom locked. From the outside. Why is my room locked? I asked, grocery bags still in my hands. Vanessa came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands. Oh, I was cleaning, and I didn't want the dust from the hall to get in. It's open now. A lie. When I went in, everything was exactly as I had left it. She hadn't cleaned anything. She had been looking for something. Documents, probably. Deeds. I started keeping everything locked up. My passport, my important papers, the house deed that I used to keep in the study. And then the worst began. The dinners. Vanessa started cooking elaborate meals for her and Robert. Cuts of meat, fresh pasta, desserts. But for me, there was always an excuse. Oh, Mother, I thought you had already eaten. I made a small amount because Robert and I are on a diet. There's some leftovers from lunch in the fridge. You can heat that up. Always leftovers. Always cold. Always alone. One night, Robert and Vanessa had baked salmon with roasted potatoes and caprese salad. I ate a ham sandwich I made myself, sitting at the breakfast nook, while they laughed and poured wine in the dining room. My dining room. My wine. My house. And I was eating alone like a beggar. The worst part? Robert didn't even notice, or he didn't want to notice. When her visitors came, Vanessa had a perfect technique. The house is lovely, her friends would say. Thank you, she would reply, as if she had built it with her own hands. We've made a lot of improvements since we moved in. We've. As if they were the owners. And if I came downstairs while they had visitors, Vanessa would look at me with a strained smile. Mother, do you need something? We're in the middle of a meeting. As if I were interrupting. As if I didn't have the right to be in my own living room. One afternoon, one of her friends asked me directly, "And are you Robert's mother?" Before I could answer, Vanessa intervened with a syrupy voice. Yes, she lives here with us. She's getting on in years and needs company. Right, Mother? Lives here with us. As if they were the owners. As if I were the freeloader. I smiled. I nodded. And I went up to my room with a broken heart. That night, lying in my bed, looking at the ceiling I had designed myself, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't sadness. It was rage. A deep, ancient rage that was born from somewhere dark in my chest and spread like fire through my veins. How had I allowed this? How had I let this woman come into my life and unravel it piece by piece? How had I allowed her to treat me like trash in my own home? But the rage wasn't just against Vanessa. It was against myself, for being a coward, for keeping silent, for smiling when I should have screamed, for being the nice mother-in-law when I should have been the owner of my own life. I got out of bed, walked to the mirror. The woman in my body was looking back, peeking out from behind the dyed hair, hands with age spots. But she also had something else. She had the look of someone who had built empires, who had raised houses with her own hands, who had survived losses that would have destroyed others. Enough is enough, I told my reflection, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt like the woman in the mirror believed me. There are moments in life when everything changes in a second. A medical diagnosis, a call at midnight, a door that opens and reveals something you shouldn't have seen. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after finding Vanessa's debts. Robert had left early for a job interview. Vanessa was still asleep, or so I thought. I went down to the kitchen to make coffee when I saw the envelope. It was on the dining room table. Manila, large, with the logo of a notary office printed in the upper corner. Public Notary 186, Licensed Attorney Humbert Carter. The envelope was open. I should have left it there. I should have respected her privacy. I should have... But it was no longer time for shoulds. I took out the documents, and what I read knocked the air out of my lungs. It was a power of attorney form, drafted in the name of Vanessa Sanchez, granting her broad and general powers to administer, sell, mortgage, and perform any act of ownership over the property located at 47 Cedars Lane, Atlanta. My house. My address. But the most appalling thing wasn't that. It was the signature at the bottom of the document. A shaky, irregular signature. That was supposedly mine. Only I had never signed that paper. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the sheets. There were more documents. A letter from the notary requesting the appearance of Mrs. Elizabeth Hayes to ratify the power granted, dated 2 weeks ago, and a handwritten response, supposedly in my handwriting, saying, "Due to health reasons, I cannot appear personally. I authorize my daughter-in-law, Vanessa Sanchez, to proceed on my behalf." My handwriting, or at least a nearly perfect imitation of it. I felt the walls closing in on me. Vanessa wasn't just planning to sell my house. She had already forged documents to do it legally. I photographed everything. Every page. Every fake signature. Every incriminating line. And then I found something else. A copy of my official ID. But it wasn't my current one. It was an old one that I had lost 2 years ago and reported as missing. How had she gotten it? The answer hit me like a blow. She had been going through my trash, my drawers, my old documents stored in boxes in the basement. She had been planning this for months. The sound of footsteps upstairs paralyzed me. I quickly put everything back in the envelope and left it exactly as I had found it. I went up the stairs, trying to walk normally, although my heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I needed help. Real help. That same afternoon, without telling anyone, I drove to Richard Solis's office. Richard had been my partner on 3 architectural projects 20 years ago. He was an architect, but also a lawyer specializing in real estate. A man of almost 70, with completely white hair and blue eyes that didn't miss a detail. When his secretary showed me in, Richard immediately stood up with a huge smile. "Liz, how many years has it been?" He hugged me with that genuine affection only old friends can give. "To what do I owe the honor?" I sat down across from his desk, and then, unable to hold back any longer, I broke down. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Frank's funeral. I cried from the humiliation, the betrayal, the rage contained for months. Richard let me cry. He didn't say anything. He just handed me a box of tissues and waited. When I could finally speak, I told him everything. Every detail, every humiliation, every document I had found. I showed him the photos on my cell phone. His expression changed with each image, from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to contained fury. "This is document forgery," he finally said, his voice grave. "It's fraud. Attempted wrongful seizure. She could go to jail for this." "I know," I whispered. "Does Robert know anything?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. He's blinded. He thinks she loves him." Richard leaned back in his chair, looking at me with those eyes that had seen too much in his career. "Liz, you need to act fast. If she's already contacting notaries, if she already has falsified documents, She's closer than you think to achieving her goal. What do I do? First, we're going to that notary office. We're going to talk to Attorney Carter and make it clear that you have never granted any power of attorney. That will invalidate any procedure she tries to do. And after that? After that. He paused. You need to decide how far you want to go, because this won't be fixed with a conversation. This is a legal battle, and your son is going to be caught in the middle. Those words hit my stomach like stones. My son, my only son. I need to think. Think fast, he said. Every day that passes, she has more time to complete her plan. I left his office with my head spinning, but before going home, I did something else. I drove to Notary 186. It was a small building in Midtown. Second floor, gold plaque on the door. Licensed attorney Humbert Carter, public notary. I took a deep breath and went in. The receptionist greeted me with a professional smile. Good afternoon. How can I help you? I need to speak with Attorney Carter. It's urgent. Do you have an appointment? No, but it's about a power of attorney that I supposedly granted and that I have never signed. The smile vanished. One moment, please. She disappeared into an inner office. Minutes later, a man about 50, impeccable suit, serious expression, came out. Mrs. Hayes, please come in. He led me to his office. He closed the door. Tell me what's going on. I explained everything. I showed him the photographs. I showed him my current ID. His face grew paler and paler. Ma'am, he finally said, I have never processed any power of attorney in your name. I have never received any documents from you. I froze. What? The logo on that envelope is from my notary office, yes. But those documents are fake. Someone created them using my letterhead, my seal, my signature. Everything is falsified. The world stopped. Are you sure? Completely, and this is extremely serious. Not only are they trying to wrongfully seize your property, but they are involving my notary office in a fraud. He got up, pacing back and forth. I need to file a formal complaint. And you do too. Complaint? With the district attorney. This is a federal crime, Mrs. Hayes. Forgery of public documents, use of false official seals, attempted fraud. The person responsible for this can face between 4 and 12 years in prison. I felt dizzy. 12 years. Vanessa could go to prison for 12 years. And Robert, God, Robert would be devastated. I need time, I whispered, to talk to my son first. The notary looked at me with compassion. I understand, but don't take too long. These criminals don't usually stop after the first attempt. If this plan fails, they will try another, and another, until they achieve their goal. I walked out of there with shaky legs. I sat in my car for I don't know how long, unable to start it, unable to move. Vanessa wasn't just an opportunist. She wasn't just taking advantage. She was a criminal, a professional delinquent who had chosen my family as her next victim. And my son slept next to that woman every night without having any idea who she really was. I started the car. I drove back home on autopilot. When I arrived, it was already dark. The living room lights were on. I could hear the television. I walked in carefully. Vanessa and Robert were on the sofa, watching a movie, sharing a blanket, eating popcorn, a perfect picture of a happy couple. Vanessa saw me and smiled. That smile I now recognized for what it was, a mask. Mother, would you like some popcorn? I made extra. My voice came out surprisingly calm. No, thank you. I'm going up to rest. Sleep well, Robert said, without turning from the screen. I climbed the stairs slowly. I locked myself in my room. And there, alone, I took out my cell phone and dialed Richard's number. "Richard," I said when he answered, "I need you to do something else. I need you to investigate Vanessa Sanchez. Everything about her. Where she comes from. What she's done before. If she has a record. Do you suspect this isn't the first time? I suspect my son and I are just her latest victims." There was a pause on the other end. "I'll do it. I have a contact who can help us. But Liz, prepare yourself for what we might find." "I'm already prepared," I lied, because I really had no idea what I was about to discover, or how deep the abyss was that Vanessa had dragged my family into. 3 days later, Richard called me. "Liz, I need you to come to my office, now." His voice sounded tense, almost urgent. "Did you find something?" "Not over the phone. Come now." He hung up before I could answer. I told Vanessa I was going to the doctor. She barely looked up from her cell phone. "Have a good appointment, Mother." The drive to Richard's office felt eternal. Every red light, every turn, every minute seemed to drag like molasses. When I finally arrived, Richard was waiting for me. His expression was grave, graver than I had ever seen it. "Sit down," he said, closing his office door. On his desk was a thick manila folder, bulging. "My contact is a private investigator," Richard began. "I gave him Vanessa Sanchez's full name and asked him to check everything. Criminal record, credit history, social media, everything." He was silent for a moment, as if deciding how to say what was coming. "Richard, you're scaring me." "You should be scared." He opened the folder. "Liz, Vanessa Sanchez is not who she says she is." My heart stopped. "To start," he continued, pulling out documents, "her full name is Vanessa Sanchez, 34 years old, born in Dallas. But there's something Robert definitely doesn't know." He placed a document in front of me. A marriage certificate. "Vanessa is married." The world tilted. "What?" "Legally married to a man named Jeff Taylor for 8 years. They never divorced. The marriage is still valid." I read the certificate with trembling hands. There was her name, her signature. Date, March 14th, 2017. "That means," my voice broke, "that her relationship with Robert is legally invalid. If they got married tomorrow, it would be bigamy. A crime." Richard pulled out more papers. "But there's more. Much more." He showed me a police report. Dallas, Texas, 2019. Vanessa was reported by a woman named Patricia Owens. The accusation, fraud and wrongful seizure. Vanessa was living with Patricia's son. She convinced the family she needed help. And within 6 months, she tried to take a family plot of land valued at $300,000. I felt nauseous. The complaint was withdrawn because they reached an out-of-court settlement. The family paid her $20,000 to leave and never come back. Richard moved to another document. But it didn't end there. In 2021, in Phoenix, another complaint. This time from a 60-year-old man named Michael Scott. Vanessa became his girlfriend. She moved into his house, and in less than a year, she had emptied his bank account. $40,000. More papers, more complaints, more victims. In 2022 in Denver, an entire family. She convinced them she was a real estate agent. She took $35,000 from them as a down payment for a house that never existed. Every document was a hammer blow to my chest. "And now she's here," Richard finished. "In your house, with your son, following the same pattern she has used for years." I couldn't breathe. Literally, I couldn't get air into my lungs. Robert was all I could say. Robert is with a professional scammer, a predator who chooses vulnerable victims and bleeds them dry until they have nothing. Richard leaned forward. Liz, this woman is dangerous. She's not just trying to steal your house. It's what she does. It's her way of life. And the husband? Jeff Taylor? We tracked him down. He lives in Dallas, works as a mechanic. When my investigator spoke with him, he told us Vanessa disappeared 3 years ago without saying anything. She took money, jewelry, documents. He looked for her for months, but eventually gave up. He never filed for divorce because, in his words, why waste money on lawyers for someone I hope I never see again? He placed a photograph on the desk. A man in his 40s, dark-haired, wearing mechanic's overalls, standing in front of a workshop. He is willing to testify, if necessary, to confirm that their marriage is still valid. I leaned back in the chair, feeling my whole body weigh a ton. I need to tell Robert. Liz, think carefully. When you tell your son this, his world is going to collapse. You need to be prepared for that. And what am I supposed to do? Let that woman keep manipulating him? Let her finish ruining him? No, but you need a plan, because when Vanessa finds out you've exposed her, she could become dangerous. She already is. Richard nodded. That's why we must act intelligently, strategically. I'm going to prepare all the legal documentation. We're going to file a formal complaint, forgery, fraud, attempted wrongful seizure. But in the meantime, you need to remain calm at home. Don't let her suspect. I don't know if I can. You have to, because if she gets scared, if she thinks she's cornered, we don't know what she's capable of. I left that office with the folder under my arm, feeling like I was carrying not paper but liquid lead. I drove home in a trance. My mind replayed the images of all those complaints, all those victims, all those destroyed families. And now it was ours. When I arrived, the house was silent. Too silent. I went up the stairs, and that's when I heard it. Voices, coming from Robert and Vanessa's room, arguing. I approached quietly. The door was slightly ajar. You can't keep going like this, Robert, Vanessa was saying, her voice frustrated. Your mother is suffocating us. Don't start, please. Don't start. We live in her house, we eat her food, everything is hers. Until when? Are we going to depend on her all our lives? I'm looking for a job, Vanessa. I just had an interview last week. And in the meantime, what? Do we continue here like two freeloaders? Like we're teenagers living with Mommy? There was silence. What do you want me to do? Robert's voice sounded tired, defeated. I want you to be a man, Robert, to set boundaries with her, to tell her that this house could be ours if she would just deed it over to us, that it's for you anyway when she, when she dies. She didn't say it, but it was there. I'm not going to ask her that, Robert replied. Well, then we're never going to have anything of our own. We'll never be independent. A pause. Sometimes I think you love your mother more than me. Don't say that. It's the truth. You always defend her. You always take her side. What about us, Robert? What about our future? I couldn't listen anymore. I backed away in silence. I went into my room. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed. The folder was still in my hands. And then something inside me finally broke. It wasn't a dramatic breakdown. It was silent, like the sound of a branch snapping under too much weight. For 2 years, I had endured. I had kept silent. I had been understanding. I had allowed myself to be treated like a nuisance in my own home. because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law, because I didn't want to lose my son. But I had already lost him. I had lost him the day he chose to believe her instead of me. I had lost him the day he saw me eating alone at the breakfast nook and didn't say anything. I had lost him the day he let her call me mother with that condescending tone, and he just smiled. I opened the folder again. I looked at all those complaints, all those victims, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be another victim. I wasn't going to end up like those people, dispossessed, humiliated, destroyed. If Vanessa wanted a war, she was going to get a war, but it was going to be on my terms, on my battlefield, and she had no idea who she had messed with. Because I was Elizabeth Hayes, the woman who built a house with her own hands, the woman who survived the death of her husband, the woman who raised her son alone. And women like me don't surrender. We rise. That night I didn't go down for dinner. I stayed in my room, planning every move, every step, every play, because Vanessa was about to discover something that none of her other victims had taught her, that old lionesses are the most dangerous. The next morning, I went down to breakfast with a smile that took me 20 minutes to practice in front of the mirror. But I needed it to be perfect, believable. Vanessa looked up from her cell phone when I walked into the kitchen. Her eyes scanned me with distrust. "Good morning," I said with a cheerful voice. Too cheerful for someone who had spent the night awake. "Good morning, Mother." Her response was cautious. I poured myself coffee, I sat at the table, and then I dropped the bomb I had prepared. "I've been thinking," I said, stirring the sugar slowly, "about what you said the other day, about the house." Vanessa immediately tensed up. "I didn't mean to offend you, Mother." "You didn't offend me." I took a sip of coffee. "You were right. This house is too big for me alone. And you've been here for 2 years now. Maybe it's time to make some changes." Vanessa's eyes lit up like a shark smelling blood. "Changes?" "I'm old, Vanessa. Tired. At my age, maintaining a property this size is exhausting." I sighed theatrically. Maybe it would be good to consider selling, or doing something different with it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the calculations, the possibilities. "Well," she said, trying to sound casual, "if you need help with that, Robert and I can support you. Look at options, talk to agents." "Yes, maybe." I left the phrase hanging in the air. "But I don't want to rush. I need to think it through." I got up, leaving her with doubt, with the hook set, but not fully biting. Perfect. That same afternoon, while Vanessa was out with her friends and Robert was at another interview, I made my real move. I called Richard. "I need you to investigate one more thing," I told him. "I want to know exactly how much money Vanessa has spent in the last 2 years. Every big purchase, every payment, everything." "What for?" "Because if she's $89,000 in debt, that money came from somewhere, and I want to know where." "Do you think she's stealing from you?" "I think I need to know." 2 days later, I had my answer. Richard came to my house on a Thursday afternoon when he knew I would be alone. He brought another folder, this one thinner, but just as devastating. "We found movements on Vanessa's credit cards that correspond to specific dates," he said, showing me statements. "Look at these purchases. Furniture for $4,200, clothes for $2,300, a television for $5,500, jewelry for $1,800. Everything she's brought into this house," I murmured. "Exactly, but here's the interesting part." He pointed to specific dates. "These payments were made 1 or 2 days after you made cash withdrawals from your account." I froze. "How do you know when I make withdrawals?" Because my investigator spoke with your bank manager. Since it's a matter of possible fraud, he agreed to check your history, and we found a pattern. He showed me a list, dates of my account withdrawals and dates of Vanessa's purchases, almost always with a 1 or 2 day difference. Liz, where do you keep your cash? My blood ran cold. In a safe box, in my closet. Does Vanessa know where it is? I don't think so. It's hidden behind some boxes. Richard looked at me with those eyes I already knew, the ones that said, "You're in more trouble than you think. Check it. Now." We went up to my room together. I opened the closet. I moved the boxes. I pulled out the metal safe box I had bought years ago. I opened it with the key I always kept in my wallet. Inside there should have been $15,000. My life savings, money I kept for emergencies. I counted the bills with trembling hands. $7,300. $7,700 were missing. It can't be, I whispered. I locked it. I always lock it. Richard lifted the safe box. He examined it, and then he pointed to the tiny marks around the lock. It was forced, probably with a pick or a thin tool, and then they closed it again so you wouldn't notice anything. I sat on the bed. My legs wouldn't hold me. "She's stealing from me," I said out loud. "She's not just planning to sell my house. She's stealing the money directly from me." "Yes, and this is enough to add theft to the charges." Richard sat next to me. "Liz, we already have evidence of everything. Document forgery, attempted fraud, theft. It's time to act." "Not yet." He looked at me surprised. "What?" "Not yet," I repeated, feeling something inside me harden like steel. "Because if I report her now, she's going to say she didn't know anything, that it was a misunderstanding, that I gave her permission. She'll cry. She'll act like a victim, and Robert will defend her." "Then what do you propose?" "I propose we give her more rope. Let her believe her plan is working. And when she's most confident, when she thinks she has already won—" I paused. "Then we close the trap." Richard studied me for a long moment. "Are you sure?" "Completely. This requires you to act, to pretend, to play along." "I know." "And that you're willing for Robert to see things that are going to break him." That sentence hurt, but I nodded. "It's the only way for him to see the truth." Richard took out his phone. "All right, then we're going to do this right. My investigator is going to install hidden security cameras in your house." "Cameras?" "Tiny ones, in strategic places. Living room, kitchen, your room. We're going to record every move Vanessa makes, every conversation, every attempt at theft or manipulation." "Is that legal?" "In your own home, recording someone who is committing crimes against you. Completely legal. And it will be irrefutable evidence." I got up. I walked to the window. From there I could see the yard where Frank and I planted the lemon tree when Robert was born. That tree was enormous now, with branches that shaded half the yard. "Do it," I said without turning around. "Install the cameras. Record everything." "And what are you going to do?" I turned to him. "I'm going to give a scammer the greatest gift they can receive." "What gift?" "A seemingly weak victim who is about to make a huge mistake." The following days were pure acting. I became the confused old woman Vanessa had always wanted me to be. I started forgetting things, names, dates, where I left my keys. "Oh, I forget everything," I would say with a nervous giggle when Vanessa looked at me. I watched her mentally note every lapse. I started accidentally leaving documents on my desk. Bank papers, statements, the old will where I left everything to Robert. One afternoon I heard her enter my room while I was in the garden. The cameras Richard had installed recorded everything. That night I reviewed the recording on my laptop. There was Vanessa entering my room, searching through my drawers, photographing my documents with her cell phone. I felt disgust, but also satisfaction, because every second of that video was evidence. I continued with my performance. I started making comments about how tired I was of dealing with papers and procedures. "Oh, Vanessa," I told her one afternoon while she pretended to help me organize documents. "Sometimes I think I should just give Robert general power of attorney, so he can handle everything. I'm too old for these things now." Her eyes gleamed. "That's not a bad idea, Mother. That way you can stop worrying." "Yes, maybe." I left the phrase hanging in the air. That same day, the living room camera recorded a conversation between Vanessa and someone on the phone. "Yes, the old lady is giving in. Give it 1 more week and I'll have the power of attorney. No, the son is useless. He does what I tell him. 4.8 million. I already told you. Yes, same plan as in Denver, but this time it's not going to fail." Richard was right. This was what she did. Her modus operandi perfected over the years. But there was one more thing I needed to know, something that bothered me like a thorn stuck deep. "Richard," I told him on the phone that night, "I need you to investigate one more thing. Tell me, Vanessa's husband, Jeff Taylor, I want you to go see him personally, show him photos of Robert. I want to know if Vanessa has talked to him about us." "What for?" "Because I have a hunch." 3 days later, Richard returned with information that left me speechless. "I spoke with Jeff Taylor," he said. "I showed him photos of Robert. And do you know what he told me?" I shook my head. That Vanessa contacted him 2 months ago. That she asked him to borrow money, $5,000. She told him she had an investment opportunity. Did he give it to her? No, but she told him something more interesting. Vanessa mocked Robert. She told him, word for word, that she had found a fool with his own house and an old woman who was on her last legs. That in a few months she would have enough money to disappear again. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Not because of me. I already knew who Vanessa was, but because of Robert, my son. The man who worked 18 hours a day sending resumes, who stayed up late worried about his future, who loved that woman with every fiber of his being. He was just a fool to her, a tool, a means to an end. "Jeff is willing to testify," Richard continued, "about what Vanessa told him, and to confirm that their marriage is still valid." "Good," I said, my voice colder than it had ever sounded. "Because it's almost time." "Time for what?" "To close the trap." That night I sat in front of my laptop and reviewed everything we had compiled. Videos of Vanessa stealing from me. Videos of her phone conversations planning the fraud. Falsified documents. Evidence of her valid marriage. Testimonies from previous victims. Declarations from the notary. Bank statements. It was enough. More than enough. But something was missing. The perfect moment was missing. The final blow that would make everything fall like dominoes. And then I had an idea. An idea that Richard called risky and potentially explosive. But I called it poetic justice. The plan was simple in theory, brutal in execution. I was going to give Vanessa exactly what she wanted, a weak, confused victim, ready to be manipulated to the end. And then, when she thought she had won, I was going to show her who had been playing whom all this time. But for it to work, I needed to act better than ever. "Richard," I told him when we met at a cafe far from my house, "I need you to contact the buyer, that engineer Miller that Vanessa brought to the house." "What for?" "To tell him that the owner is interested in selling, that he should contact Vanessa directly to coordinate a second visit." Richard frowned. "You're going to give her more ammunition?" I'm going to give her all the rope in the world, and when she's completely tangled in it, I'm going to pull. He understood immediately. A slow smile spread across his face. You're more cunning than I remembered, Liz. Life taught me how to be. Engineer Miller contacted Vanessa 2 days later. I listened to the entire conversation from my room, thanks to the hidden cameras they had installed. Ms. Sanchez, Attorney Solis, contacted me. He said the owner is ready to move forward with the sale. Vanessa's voice practically sang with excitement. Yes, that's right. My mother-in-law finally understood that it's what's best for everyone. Perfect. Could we coordinate a second visit? This time I'd like to bring my architect to check the structures. Of course. How about next Friday in the afternoon when my mother-in-law is more rested? Code for when she's more confused. Excellent. I'll see you Friday at 4 o'clock. When Vanessa hung up, I heard her scream with excitement. Then she dialed another number. Honey, it worked. The buyer wants to see the house again. No, your mother is completely on board. I'm telling you, she's giving in. I just need you to convince her too, okay? Talk nicely to her. Tell her it's for our own good. My son, my own son, being used as the final tool of manipulation. That night, Robert came into my room. He knocked softly before entering. Mum, can I talk to you? Of course, son. I closed the book I was pretending to read. Sit down. He sat on the edge of my bed, with that hunched posture he had when something worried him. Vanessa told me that you're considering selling the house. Ah, yes. I sighed theatrically. I'm tired, Robert. This house is too much for me, and you two need to start your life. Mum, you don't have to do this for us. But I want to. I took his hand. It was cold. You are my only son. I want to see you happy, settled. And if selling this house gives you and Vanessa the chance to start fresh. I saw the conflict in his eyes. Part of him knew this was wrong, but another part, the part that loved Vanessa, the part that wanted to believe her, was winning the battle. Are you sure, Mum? Completely. Lie. Just promise me something, anything, that you'll take care of the money, that you won't waste it, that you'll build something good with it. Robert hugged me. I promise I will, Mum. I promise we're going to do this right. When he left my room, I had to bite my lip until it bled to keep from crying. Because my son, my good and naive son, had no idea he was being the final piece of the fraud. The following days were pure theatre. I started acting like I was in the early stages of senile dementia. I would get confused in conversations, forget names, repeat questions. One afternoon, while Vanessa and I were alone in the kitchen, I dropped the perfect bomb. Vanessa, I said with a trembling voice, I need you to help me with something. Of course, Mother. Tell me. It's just, there are so many papers, so many things to sign. The bank called me yesterday, and I didn't understand anything they said. I put my hand to my head. Sometimes I feel like my head just doesn't work like it used to. Vanessa approached with that false compassion she had perfected. Don't worry, Mother. That's what Robert and I are here for. To help you. Really? I looked at her with teary eyes. Because I've been thinking, maybe I should give you a power of attorney, so you can handle things. You're younger. You understand all those modern things better. Vanessa's eyes lit up as if it were Christmas. If you think it's necessary, Mother, I'd be happy to assist you. It's just that I don't want to be a burden to anyone. You would never be a burden. She took my hands, cold, calculating hands. Let me help you. We'll go to the notary office together. We'll arrange everything properly with legal papers so you can be at peace. You would do that for me? Of course, Mother. We're family. Family. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. Then let's go tomorrow, I said. We'll fix everything. That night I called Richard. She's going to try to take me to a notary office tomorrow. Which one? I don't know, but I bet it won't be a real one, or it will be some corrupt notary who works with her. Are you going to go? I'm going to go, and you're going to follow us. Liz, this is dangerous. I know, but I need evidence of her attempting to finalize the fraud. I need it recorded, documented, irrefutable. There was a pause. All right, but you're going to wear a hidden recorder, and I'm going to be half a block away at all times. The next morning, Vanessa was radiant. Mother, good that you woke up. I made an appointment at the notary office for 11 o'clock. That fast? Well, the notary is very busy. We were lucky he had an available slot. Of course, because it probably wasn't a real notary. I got dressed slowly, acting out every movement as if it required effort. Richard had given me a small device that looked like a decorative brooch, but was actually a camera and audio recorder. Do I look okay? I asked Vanessa, pointing to the brooch on my blouse. You look lovely, Mother. She had no idea she was recording her own sentence. We got into Vanessa's car, a compact red model she had bought on sale months ago. She drove with that smile of a cat who had just caught a mouse. You'll see, Mother. After today, everything will be easier. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. Thank you, dear. I used that word intentionally. I don't know what I would do without you. The notary office was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize, an old building with peeling paint. Nothing like the professional notary offices I knew. We went up to the second floor. The plaque on the door read, Licensed Attorney Adam Bell, Public Notary 243. We entered a small, poorly lit office, with that damp smell of places that don't receive maintenance. A man in his 50s, heavy-set, in a cheap suit, greeted us with an oily smile. Mrs. Hayes, what a pleasure. Please come in. Come in. He directed me to a chair in front of his desk. Vanessa sat next to me, taking my arm as if I were a child who needed guidance. Well, the supposed notary began, I understand you wish to grant a general power of attorney to Miss Sanchez. That's right, I said in a weak voice. I'm very tired now. I need help. Perfect. I have the document already prepared here. He pulled out some papers. I just need you to read it and sign. He passed me the document. I started reading it slowly, squinting as if it were difficult. It was exactly what I expected. A very broad power that gave Vanessa total control over all my assets. To sell, mortgage, dispose. Everything. Is it ready already? I asked in a confused voice. But we just arrived. Miss Sanchez sent me all the information in advance, the false notary explained, to speed up the process. You know, at your age, it's better not to tire you out with so many trips. At my age? Very thoughtful, I murmured. Vanessa squeezed my arm. Sign here, Mother. And here. And here. I took the pen. I brought it close to the paper. And then I stopped. You know what? I said, setting the pen down on the desk. I think I'll think about it a little more. The atmosphere in the office changed immediately. Excuse me? Vanessa said in a tense voice. It's just that it's a very big decision. Maybe I should consult Robert first. But you already talked to Robert, Mother. He agrees. Oh, did I? When did I talk to him? I feigned confusion. I don't remember. Last night, Mother. Did you already forget? Her voice was starting to sound irritated. The false notary intervened. Mrs. Hayes, I recommend you sign today. These procedures are complicated to reschedule, but I'm just not sure. I put my hands to my head. My head is confused today. Maybe another day. No, Vanessa almost yelled. She immediately composed herself. I mean, Mother, we're already here. The attorney did us a favor by receiving us. Just take the pen and sign. It's for your own good. For my own good? I looked her directly in the eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I let her see something real in my gaze, something hard, something dangerous. Or for yours. She went pale. The false notary tried to intervene again, but I was already standing. You know what? I think I'm leaving. I don't feel well. Mother, wait. I said I'm leaving. My voice came out firmer than it had sounded in weeks. I walked toward the door. Vanessa followed me, trying to stop me, but I was already in the hallway. I went down the stairs as fast as I could. I heard Vanessa behind me calling my name, but I didn't stop. I got outside, and there was Richard, waiting for me in his car half a block away, exactly as we had planned. I quickly got in. Go, go! He obeyed without asking questions. I looked in the side mirror. Vanessa had come out onto the street, looking for me, cell phone in hand, with that look of poorly disguised panic. Did you record everything? Richard asked. I touched the brooch on my blouse. Every word. Then it's almost time. Yes, I said, feeling my heart beating hard but steady. It's almost time for Vanessa to meet the real Elizabeth Hayes. 3 days passed. 3 days in which Vanessa tried to approach me as if nothing had happened. 3 days of forced smiles and questions disguised as concern. Mother, are you feeling well? You seemed very upset that day at the notary office. I'm perfectly fine, I replied in a neutral voice. I didn't give her explanations. I didn't give her peace. I only gave her silence. And silence, I discovered, was the most powerful weapon of all. I watched her squirm. I saw how her mind worked, trying to understand what had gone wrong, if I suspected something, if she should change her strategy. But she didn't know it was already too late. On Wednesday afternoon, while Vanessa was in the living room talking softly on the phone, I was in my room coordinating the final move. Richard, I said on the phone, it's time. Organize the dinner for Friday. Are you completely sure? There's no turning back after this. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. All right. I'll contact everyone involved. Did Jeff Taylor confirm? Confirmed. He's coming all the way from Dallas. And Engineer Miller? He confirmed too, though he's still confused about why you're inviting him. He'll understand on Friday. And Robert? Have you told him yet? That question hurt. No. He's going to find out along with everyone else. I need him to see everything at the same time. It's the only way. There was a pause. It's going to hurt, Liz. I know. But the pain of a truth is better than the comfort of a lie. On Thursday evening, during dinner, I dropped the final bait. Vanessa? Robert, I said, while we ate in silence. I want to host a family dinner on Friday. They both looked at me surprised. A dinner? Robert asked. Yes, I've been doing a lot of thinking these days, and I believe it's time to resolve some things, to talk about the future clearly. I looked at both of them. I want us to invite some important people so we can make decisions together, as a family. Vanessa immediately recovered her smile. That sounds perfect, Mother. Who do you want to invite? My lawyer, Richard Solis, Engineer Miller, that buyer you brought over. The notary who will advise us on the procedures. I paused. And some other people I think need to be present. Other people? Yes, I've already contacted them. They all confirmed. Robert frowned. Mom, who else? It's a surprise, I smiled. But I promise you everything will be very clear on Friday. Vanessa tried to hide her uneasiness, but I saw it, that shadow of doubt crossing her face. Sounds good, she finally said. Excellent. Dinner will be at 7 o'clock. Dress nicely. It's going to be a memorable night. She had no idea how memorable. Friday dawned with a clear sky, ironic considering the storm that was about to break. I spent the morning cooking. I prepared turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, fresh biscuits, the recipes Frank loved, the ones I made for special occasions. Vanessa watched me from the kitchen doorway with a confused expression. Do you need help, Mother? No, thank you. Today I want to do it myself. It's a lot of work, but I like to cook. It reminds me of better times. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I started setting the dining room. I took out the good china, the porcelain set I only used at Christmas, the silver cutlery, the crystal glasses. The table looked beautiful, elegant, dignified, like a stage for what was to come. At 6 o'clock, I took a long bath. I put on a navy blue dress that I hadn't worn since Frank's funeral. I carefully applied makeup. I styled my hair in an elegant bun. When I walked down the stairs, Robert looked at me amazed. Mom, you look beautiful. Thank you, son. I kissed him on the cheek. Today is an important day. Vanessa came down minutes later, a tight red dress, high heels, too much makeup. She looked like what she was, a desperate woman trying to impress. At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I'll get it, I said. It was Richard. Impeccable suit, briefcase in hand, serious expression. Liz. He kissed me on the cheek. Ready? Ready. We entered the dining room. Robert and Vanessa were already seated. Robert, Vanessa, you already know Attorney Solis. Both greeted him with tense politeness. The doorbell rang again. It was Engineer Miller. He looked confused, but polite. Mrs. Hayes, thank you for the invitation, although I'm not sure I understand. Everything will become clear, Engineer. Please, come in. I sat him at the table. Vanessa looked at him with a cautious expression. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Attorney Carter, the real, legitimate notary. Attorney, thank you for coming. Mrs. Hayes, when you explained the situation to me, I couldn't refuse. Vanessa had paled considerably. Mum, Robert said, what is going on? Patience, son. And then the guest no one was expecting arrived. I rang the doorbell myself this time, and when I opened the door, there he was. Jeff Taylor, Vanessa's legal husband. A man in his early 40s, dark-haired, with a face weathered by the sun and hard work. He wore clean jeans and a dress shirt. He had dressed up for the occasion. Mrs. Hayes, he said in a respectful voice. Jeff, thank you for coming all this way from Dallas. It's the least I can do. I led him to the dining room, and when Vanessa saw him, the colour completely drained from her face. Jeff? She whispered. Robert looked between them, confused. Who is this man, Mom? Robert, I said firmly. I'd like to introduce you to Jeff Taylor, Vanessa's husband. The silence that followed was absolute. What? Robert's voice came out as a squeak. Vanessa stood up abruptly. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain. Sit down. My voice cut through the air like a whip. Something in my tone made her obey. I remained standing at the head of the table. Everyone was looking at me, but I only had eyes for Vanessa. This dinner is about the truth, I began. A truth that has been buried under lies for 2 years. Mom, what are you talking about? Robert looked completely lost. Let me show you, son. I signaled to Richard. He took his laptop out of his briefcase and placed it on the table. He connected it to a small portable projector that pointed toward the white dining room wall. We're going to watch a movie, I said. The movie of how Vanessa Sanchez has been destroying our family. I pressed play. The first image that appeared was a marriage certificate, Vanessa and Jeff's. Date, March 14th, 2017. Vanessa is legally married, I said. She never divorced. Your relationship with her, Robert, is legally invalid. You are the side piece, not the husband. Robert stared at the screen as if he had been punched in the head. The next image, bank statements, Vanessa's debts, $89,000. This is the reason she's here. Not for love, for money. Then, the recorded phone conversations. Vanessa's voice saying, "The old lady is giving in, and same plan as in Denver." Afterward, the videos of her entering my room, searching through my drawers, photographing my documents, stealing from my safe box. She stole $7,700 from my savings. And finally, the falsified documents, the power of attorney with my imitated signature, the false letter to the notary. She tried to steal my house using falsified documents, signature forgery, fraud, wrongful seizure. Every image was a blow, every document a stab. Robert had stopped breathing, literally. He was frozen, eyes fixed on the wall, watching his reality crumble piece by piece. Vanessa tried to get up, but Attorney Carter spoke. "Miss Sanchez, I recommend you remain seated. I have already filed a formal complaint with the district attorney. There is an arrest warrant in process." She slumped into her chair. "No," was all she could say. I turned to Jeff. "Mr. Taylor, could you tell us what Vanessa told you when she contacted you 2 months ago?" Jeff nodded, looking at Vanessa with a mixture of pity and contempt. "She told me she had found a fool with his own house and an old woman who was on her last legs, that she would soon have enough money to disappear again. She asked me for $5,000 as a loan to speed up the plan." Robert let out a sound, something between a sob and a choked cry. "Robert." Vanessa reached out her hand to him, but he flinched away as if her touch burned. "Don't touch me." His voice was trembling. "No, don't you dare touch me." I turned to Engineer Miller, who was watching everything with wide eyes. "Engineer, you were contacted by this woman to buy a property she has no right to sell. The $30,000 you gave as a down payment was stolen. Richard will help you recover it and file your own complaint." The engineer nodded mechanically, still in shock. Finally, I turned to Vanessa. She was crying, tears running through her perfect makeup, creating black streaks on her cheeks. "Please," she pleaded. I can explain everything. There is nothing to explain." My voice was ice. "You are a professional scammer, a criminal who has destroyed entire families, and you thought I would be your next victim." "Mother, please. Don't call me mother." Every word came out poisoned. "You are not family, you never were. You are a predator who saw weakness and attacked. But you made one mistake." "Which one?" I leaned toward her, looking her directly in the eyes. "You assumed that because I am 68, I was finished, that I was weak, defenseless, that you could manipulate and destroy me without consequences." I smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. "You were wrong, because I built this house with my own hands. I survived things that would have broken you into 1,000 pieces, and I was not going to let some low-level criminal take away everything I have fought for. I straightened up. Richard, call the authorities. No, Vanessa stood up abruptly. Robert, tell them something, defend me, and… All eyes turned to my son. Robert was sitting, hands on the table, looking at them as if they weren't his. His eyes were red, his face ravaged. When he spoke, his voice sounded broken, completely broken. Was anything you ever said true? Vanessa opened her mouth. She closed it. She opened it again. I did love you. Liar. The word came out like a whip. It was all a lie. From the beginning. He stood up slowly. He walked toward her. And for a moment, I thought he was going to hug her, to forgive her, to be the weak man she had believed he was. But instead, he stopped in front of her and said the only thing that mattered. I want you out of this house. Now. Robert. Now. The scream echoed in the dining room. Vanessa backed away, stumbling over her chair. She looked around for support, but only found hard, accusing glances. You have no right, she started. But then the authorities arrived. 2 agents from the district attorney's office, a woman and a man. They had the warrant. Vanessa Sanchez? She nodded weakly. You are under arrest for document forgery, fraud, and theft. You have the right to remain silent. They handcuffed her right there, in my dining room, on the hardwood floor I had laid with my own hands. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. There was no plea in her eyes, only pure hatred. This doesn't end here, she hissed. For you it does, I replied. For you it ended the day you decided Elizabeth Hayes was an easy victim. They took her away. The door closed, and the silence that remained was deafening. After everyone left, the house was silent, a different silence than before. This one wasn't filled with tension or manipulation. It was an empty silence. Hollow. Robert was still sitting in the dining room. He hadn't moved since they took Vanessa away. He just stared at his hands on the table as if looking for answers in the lines of his palms. I sat across from him. Son, don't… His voice came out choked. Don't say anything yet. Let me process this. I nodded. I waited. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were red, swollen. How long did you know? Weeks. Richard investigated everything after I found the fake documents. And you didn't tell me anything? You needed to see it for yourself. If I had only told you, you wouldn't have believed me. He ran his hands over his face. You're right. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have defended her. A bitter laugh escaped his throat. What kind of idiot am I? You're not an idiot. You were manipulated by a professional. I lived with her for 2 years, Mom. I slept beside her. I told her I loved her. His voice broke. How did I not see anything? Because love blinds us, and she was very good at what she did. Robert shook his head. I treated you badly. I allowed her to treat you badly. I saw you eat alone and didn't say anything. I saw how she disrespected you and… His voice failed him. How can you even look at me? I stood up, circled the table, knelt beside his chair, and took his face in my hands. Because you are my son, and sons make mistakes, but they also learn from them. I don't deserve your forgiveness. It's not something you deserve. It's something I give because I love you. I wiped a tear from his cheek. But I need you to understand something, Robert. This cannot happen again. I need you to learn to value what you have, to respect those who have given you everything. He nodded, crying as I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. I'm sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry. I know, son. I know. I hugged him, and in that embrace I felt everything: the pain, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the hope. I'm going to make it up to you, he said against my shoulder. I don't know how, but I will. I already know how. I pulled away from him. You're going to move out? He froze. What? I took an envelope from my pocket. I had prepared it days earlier. Years ago, I bought a small apartment, an investment. It's in the Upper West Side. 2 bedrooms, well located. The deeds are here. I put the envelope in front of him. It's yours, but with conditions. Mum, I can't accept. Condition 1. You're going to live alone. You're going to learn who you are without depending on anyone. Not on me, and not on any woman. He swallowed. He nodded. Condition 2. You're going to work. It doesn't matter what you do, but you're going to support yourself through your own effort. I will. Condition 3. Every Sunday you come here for dinner, and we're going to rebuild what was broken, as mother and son, as real family. His eyes filled with tears again. Why are you doing this? After everything? Because you are my son, and because I believe in second chances. I stood up. But this is your only chance, Robert. There won't be a third. He took the envelope with trembling hands. He opened it. He saw the deeds. Thank you, Mum. I swear I won't let you down. More importantly, don't let yourself down. He stayed that night, his last night in this house as a resident. The next morning, he packed his things. They weren't many. 1 suitcase, some boxes. At the door, he hugged me tightly. I love you, Mum. And I love you, son. Always. He left, and I closed the door knowing that, for the first time in 2 years, my house was mine again. The following months brought peace. Vanessa was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Forgery, fraud, theft. Her history of previous victims weighed heavily on the sentence. Engineer Miller recovered his money. He even thanked me for exposing her. Jeff Taylor finally filed for divorce. And I renovated my house. Not the structure, but its soul. I painted walls. I changed furniture. I removed every trace of Vanessa. I converted the study into a small architectural workshop. I started giving free classes to older women who wanted to learn design. Robert kept his word. Every Sunday he came with flowers or a box of pastries. We ate together. We talked for real. Slowly, very slowly, we rebuilt what had been broken. Today, as I write this, sitting in my garden, watching the lemon tree that Frank and I planted 43 years ago, I understand something fundamental. True wealth is not in what you own. It is in what you don't allow to be taken from you. Your dignity, your peace, your home, your soul. Vanessa tried to take everything from me, but she forgot one essential thing. Women like me are not built in easy days. We are forged in storms, and when the storm passes, we are still standing, stronger than before.